friends, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm coming at you with a really late January TBR. I just got back home the day before yesterday from my trip to Puerto Rico, so now I'm back home in Cleveland, Ohio, and I just hadn't had much time to plan everything. I wasn't even planning on having a January TBR, but then I got some video ideas, so now I do. So I think I have about 8 or 9 books on my TBR. The first 2 are rollovers from December, because I didn't read a lot in Puerto Rico. I took 3 books with me and I thought I was gonna read all of them, and I read one and it wasn't even a full one. I read like the last 100 pages of it, so yes. Also, I did vlog my Puerto Rico holiday trip, so yeah, you can look forward to that. That should be the next video after this one. So let's get started with the January TBR. Also, my goal for the year of 2022 is to read 100 books again. We'll see if that happens, but yeah. All right, let's get started. So the first book for my January TBR is the book that I'm currently reading, and that is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Carr. This was on my December TBR, so I feel like I'm repeating myself so often because I feel like this book has been on TBRs for so many times. But if you haven't heard, this book is, I forget again when this book is set. I should know this by now because I've talked about this book so many times. Kind of like an Agatha Christie type of novel, and it's kind of like a dinner party and someone, obviously Evelyn Hardcastle, is murdered, and then there's this person that's trying to figure out what happened. But it's also kind of like a Groundhog Day. Is that what the movie's called? I don't know. I've never watched that movie, but I know that this person relives the same day over and over. So it's kind of like that also, but every time that he wakes up in the body of a different person at the dinner party. So he's trying to figure out who murdered her, but then he wakes up in different bodies. Does that make sense? I'm really excited to read this. This has been on my TBR for many years. I was looking back on my Bookstagram, and this was one of the first books that I took a picture of, and I started my Bookstagram in 2019, so this has been on my TBR for way too long. So I'm super excited to read it finally. Another book that is a rollover from December 2021 is Vows, Bold and Deadly by Bridget Kemmerer. I told myself that I was going to read this in the year 2021 because it came out that year, and I was super stoked to read this because I love this series by Bridget Kemmerer, and I never got to it. So if you don't know, this series is called the Cursebreaker series, obviously by Bridget Kemmerer. It's kind of like a Beauty and the Beast retelling. There's a lot of political intrigue. I loved the first 2 books. I have heard that this one doesn't kind of live up to the hype, or it's not an amazing conclusion, but I still want to read it because I feel like Bridget Kemmerer's writing is just very addictive, and now that I've met and know these characters and love them so much, I want to know how it ends. And I know that I'm going to, like, once I start reading it, I'm not going to be able to put it down. So I really want to read this still. So yeah, reading this month because I can't believe that I didn't read it last year. The next book on my January TBR is Gods of Jadens Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and this is the January book club pick for my book club with my bestie here on BookTube, Cami from Vows and Books. Our book club is called Brujas and Books. I talk about it every single TBR ever since we launched the book club. So basically, our book club, Brujas and Books, we read a book by Latinx author each month. We've been trying to keep it super diverse to authors of very many different cultures, so Mexican, Ecuadorian, Salvadorian, all of that. We're working really hard to have a wide variety. So this one is very adventurous. I forget what how old the main character is. I don't believe it says it on here, but basically the main character, she lives with her grandfather, and one day she's kind of cleaning around her grandfather's house and she encounters like this spirit, I believe. Yeah, she accidentally frees the spirit of a Mayan god of death who requests her help in recovering his throne from his treacherous brother. So she's kind of sent on this like journey, and I believe it's set in very different like places, so like the jungles of Yucatan to the bright lights of Mexico City. So I'm super excited to get to this. I've heard mixed things, but I think I'm gonna love this. The next book on my TBR is also for another book club that I participate in every month. I think I've only not participated like once or twice, and that is the Full Moon Book Club by Agaton, who is one of my closest friends here on BookTube. And for the month of January, she picked The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This is a middle grade. I know nothing about this book. So from what I know, or what I've heard people talk about this book, I think I've heard that there's like this little town, and every year they leave a baby as an offering to this witch that's in the woods to kind of keep her at peace and not create any conflict. So they leave a baby as an offering, and I believe our main character is one of those babies that it's an offering. But what the town people don't know is that the witch is actually not evil at all, so she kind of takes care of all these kids, I think. And then one day, accidentally, she feeds one of the kids moonlight, and I believe that's our main character, the girl who drank the moon. So I don't know if this is gonna be like an adventure or what kind of story it's really going to tell, but I'm really excited to read this. Yeah, I haven't read a lot of middle grade. The last one I read was Amari and the Night Brothers, and I loved it, so I'm hoping this kind of like that is very adventurous and the plot is just really there. So I'm really excited to read this. Coffee break, please. Right, the last books on my TBR, you're going to see a theme. These are for a secret TBR that I'm planning. It's literally just to motivate me to read these books, but you're going to see the theme. It's very obvious. Like, comment it down below. Like, it's super obvious. But anyway, I'm gonna get started. So a couple of these books have been on my TBRs in the past, so I'm sorry if this is repetitive. But the first book on that secret TBR is We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang. This one, I believe, is about like an Irish-American family, and then there's this woman who's the main character. She's 29 years old, and she got into a drunk driving accident, but I believe she was the one that was drunk. And then she has to go back to her family because she got into this car accident and she doesn't really have anyone to help her out. So she has to go back to her family, but she hasn't talked to them in like 5 years, so it's kind of awkward, and it's kind of like a family dynamic type of book, which I love family books, so I'm really excited to read this. The next book on the secret TBR is Survive the Night by Riley Sager, and this one is a mystery thriller. You probably have heard of this. This is set in 24 hours. It's set in mostly a car, I believe, and basically our main character is in the same car as a serial killer. There's many more details in the plot of the story, but I'm not gonna go into them right now. The next book on the secret TBR is The Survivors by Jane Harper, and this one is a very mysterious novel. I was reading the description, but it's very like vague. So it's basically about this family. Something horrible happens in this little town. Like, it's like a sea town. What are those called? Hold on. It's a coastal community, a small coastal community where they once used to live, and something horrible happened, so they obviously moved away. I believe the father is very absent. You don't really know what happened, but I guess a body is discovered on the beach, and this kind of resurfaces a lot of secrets and like things that happened in the past. This sounds like I'm really going to love it. But yeah, this is also in my secret TBR. Have you caught on to the theme yet? Because it's really obvious. The next two books I haven't received in the mail yet. I will in only a couple days. But the next two books on my TBR are The Magnolia Palace by Fiona Davis. And this is a historical fiction novel. This is set in the 1900s, I believe early 1900s. This is set during like the Spanish flu. And I quite honestly know nothing about what this novel is about. But like a little bit of what I read is that this novel is about secrets, betrayal, and murder within one of New York City's most impressive Gilded Age mansions. So I do know that this is going to surround a lot. I think it's like a mansion or a hotel. It's like the Magnolia Palace. So that sounded really interesting to me when I read it on the Book of the Month website. So yeah, this is the next book on my TBR. And then the last book on my January TBR is Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins. This, I believe, will be my first Rachel Hawkins book. I've heard of this author for so many years, since the beginning of BookTube, so I'm really excited to read this. And what sold me on this novel, I also don't know too much about it, but what sold me on it is that it said, a gothic suspense set on an isolated Pacific island with a dark history for fans of Lucy Foley and Ruth Ware, two of my favorite mystery thriller authors. So I'm really excited to read this. I'm really excited to read this also because I think this book is all set in like a ship that they're all on, and it's a whole bunch of different characters, so it's very Lucy Foley guest list, like a really big cast of characters, and you get to know each one of them, and they're in an isolated setting, which is a ship, and they're like in the middle of nowhere. I believe they're like really far off from civilization, and they all have their different stories. There's like these college girls, and then these people from Hawaii that are kind of like in a dead-end job. I think they're the ones like driving the ship or sailing. I don't know what you say when you're driving a boat, I don't know, but yeah, it's like a big cast of characters. They're like in the middle of nowhere. I'm assuming someone will die, and they're in the middle of nowhere, so like, yes, it sounds super interesting. That is the end for my January TBR. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I hope to get to all of these books because I'm super stoked about all of them. Please leave down below your guess for my secret TBR. It is very obvious. If you look back, like if you haven't caught on, if you watch it one more time, I'm sure that you will. Because it's very obvious. Also, I think I mentioned that my next video will be my Puerto Rico reading vlog where I read 100 pages. And I was hoping to have my boyfriend pick my TBR for this month, but it didn't work out because this was late and all that. Anyway, I'm planning it, but for the month of February, my boyfriend's going to pick out my whole TBR, and I think he will be on camera, so watch out for that because I'm excited for that video. Alright, well, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another video. Bye!